Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, English Skill Express. Are you ready to improve your listening and speaking skills? Today's episode is all about English learning. Tips, tricks, and strategies to improve your English skills. You'll learn useful words and phrases that are commonly used in everyday English conversations. This is also an excellent opportunity for you to practice and improve your English listening and speaking skills. I'm your host, Sarah.
And I'm Mark. We're excited to dive into this topic because we know many of you are eager to enhance your English proficiency. Let's start with the basics. Sarah, why do you think learning English is important?
Well, Mark, English is a global language spoken by millions of people worldwide. It opens doors to opportunities in education, work, and travel. Plus, it's the language of international communication.
Absolutely. Whether you're aiming to advance in your career or connect with people from different cultures, English can be a powerful tool. So, Sarah, what's the first step for someone starting to learn English?
The first step is to build a strong foundation in grammar and vocabulary. Understanding basic sentence structures and common words will give you confidence to start speaking and writing.
Right. It's like building a house. You need a solid foundation. For our listeners, try using language apps or beginner English courses online. They're great resources for beginners.
And don't forget about immersion. Listen to English music, watch movies with subtitles, and try speaking English with friends or language partners.
Immersion is key. Next, let's talk about practicing English conversation. Many learners struggle with this. What advice do you have, Sarah?
Practicing conversation can be intimidating, but it's essential for fluency. Start by having simple dialogues with friends or even by talking to yourself in English. It might feel strange at first, but it really helps.
Absolutely. And for those looking for more structured practice, language exchange programs or conversation clubs are fantastic options. Now let's touch on a common challenge, pronunciation.
Pronunciation. It can be tricky, especially with all those silent letters. My tip is to listen carefully and mimic native speakers. Pay attention to stress and intonation. It makes a big difference.
Yes, and practice tongue twisters or read aloud regularly. It's a fun way to improve pronunciation and fluency. Okay, moving on to another important skill, reading and writing. How can learners enhance these skills?
Reading English books, articles, or even children's stories can really boost vocabulary and grammar. And for writing, start with simple journal entries or essays. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's part of the learning process.
Great advice. And let's not forget about setting goals. Setting achievable milestones can keep learners motivated and focused on their English learning journey.
Absolutely, Mark. Whether it's mastering a certain number of words or having a conversation entirely in English, goals can drive progress.
Now, Sarah, before we wrap up, what's one final tip you'd give our listeners who are committed to improving their English?
I'd say be patient and consistent. Learning a language takes time, so celebrate small victories along the way. And don't be afraid to ask for help when needed.
Now let's dive a bit deeper into some of the vocabulary we used in our conversation about English learning. Sarah, could you explain what proficiency means?
Of course, Mark. Proficiency refers to a high level of skill or competence in a particular area. In this case, English language proficiency means being very skilled and fluent in English.
Excellent explanation. Another word we mentioned is foundation. Sarah, could you break down what it means to have a strong foundation in English?
Absolutely, Mark. Foundation here refers to the basic knowledge and understanding of English grammar and vocabulary. It's like the solid base or groundwork you need before advancing to more complex language skills.
That's right. Now, another term we used is immersion. Sarah, can you explain what it means to immerse oneself in the English language?
Sure thing, Mark. Immersion means surrounding yourself with English, whether it's listening to English music, watching English movies, or even speaking the language regularly. It's like diving into the language and culture to accelerate learning.
Exactly. And what about intimidating, Sarah? We mentioned this in the context of practicing English conversation.
Intimidating means feeling frightened or nervous about something. Many learners find practicing English conversation intimidating at first, but with practice, it becomes easier and less daunting.
Well explained, Sarah. And finally, let's talk about pronunciation. Can you tell our listeners what this word means and why it's important in language learning?
Of course, Mark. Pronunciation refers to how we say words, including the sounds, stress, and intonation. It's crucial because clear pronunciation helps others understand you better when you speak English.
Thank you, Sarah, for clarifying these vocabulary words. Understanding these terms is essential for anyone serious about improving their English skills.
Absolutely, Mark. Remember, listeners, building a strong vocabulary and understanding these key terms will greatly benefit your English learning journey.
Well said, Sarah. That wraps up our discussion on vocabulary for today. We hope you found it helpful. Until next time, keep expanding your vocabulary and practicing English.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Until next time, keep learning and keep practicing. Goodbye.